The mask with my husband's mouth. Hook. The invitation arrived inside my husband's suit jacket, a square of heavy paper smelling faintly of cedar and someone else's hand cream. Midnight masquerade, it said in italic flourishes, members and guests only. In the corner, in a fine black pen I recognized but didn't own, a note. Red room at 11. Ask for Orpheus. It would have been theatrical if it hadn't also been a map. I turned the card over, looking for a name that wasn't mine, and found my husband's initials, etched with a pressure he never uses when he writes for me. My name is Michael, 35. I build wine lists for restaurants that want to convince their guests that the night is longer than it is. My husband, Adrian, teaches dance and can make a room full of strangers sway like they share a spine. 4 years of marriage has taught me where he hides his cologne and where I hide my temper. For the last 6 months we had been choreographing our routine with professional politeness. Kisses rapid and precise, schedules dovetailed without friction, a bed warmed by habit more than heat. I told myself it was adulthood. Then the invitation told me I had not been invited. At 10:30, I stood outside the old theater on Delancey and watched beautiful people choose their angles for the door. The facade had kept its dignity. The marquee announced nothing but the hour. A man in a black suit with a white carnation asked for my name. "I'm a guest," I said, and he smiled as if that answered a better question. Inside, the lobby was amber and velvet, and the music did the thing it does when it wants you to pretend you're braver than you are. I took a mask from the tray, a plain black domino that made me look like my worst ideas, and tied it tight. I had stolen Adrian's cologne on my way out and the scent rose under it, a ghost insisting it was me. I found him on the mezzanine, because I always do when I don't want to. He wore a half-mask of bronze leaves, his mouth visible and mercilessly familiar. His suit was the midnight blue I bought him last Christmas when I believed we were a quiet luxury to each other. He was laughing at something the man beside him had said. The man wore a simple black mask and a red pocket square that looked like a wound pretending to be silk. He turned toward Adrian the way a plant turns toward a window, and I saw the kind of interest that doesn't apologize. He put 2 fingers at Adrian's wrist, and I recognized the choreography. My chest made a noise I hoped the orchestra took the blame for. I didn't go to them, not yet. I let the room do what rooms do when it smells an edge. It leaned. A woman in a feathered mask brushed my sleeve and whispered, "Take the long way around the truth. It's more fun." And I smiled like a man who already knows better. The red pocket square and my husband drifted toward the balcony and I moved opposite them, staying one waltz behind, the way a hunter might if the prey weren't also a piece of his own heart. At 11, I asked the bartender where the red room was, and he nodded toward a velvet curtain at the back of the house. "Members only," he said, and I showed him the invitation and my mouth did something he believed. Behind the curtain, a hallway closed around me like a throat. The red room had low light and high mirrors and music that had learned manners. There were couples curled into corners as if the architecture had taught them how. At the far end, under a chandelier that didn't need to be that confident, stood Adrian and the man with the red square. The man's mask was on his head like a crown now, and I saw the face he wore when he wanted something and thought he would get it. He saw me first. He smiled in a way that said he had been expecting a more pedestrian choice. "Orpheus," he said, and his voice had the gall to be kind. "I'm not the one who named himself after a myth," I said. Adrian turned at the sound of me and for a second, the particular, ugly second that tells you who you are in a crisis, his mouth did relief before it remembered its lines. "Michael," he said, and the music let our names fall without comment. "This is Luca." The name did what names do when they've been used in rooms you weren't in. It slotted into stories I hadn't been told. Luca extended a hand, and I looked at it the way you look at a glass you're not sure has been cleaned. Then I took it, and the shock in both our faces was a shame we were too good to hide. "You weren't invited," Luca said softly. "I wasn't," I said. "He was." Adrian stepped between us the way dancers do when they don't want to make a scene and then do anyway. "We were going to talk tomorrow," he said, "over coffee, without masks or lighting or the cruelty of this chandelier." "Tomorrow is a place where we never live," I said. "Tell me why my kitchen table wasn't good enough for this conversation." He breathed in through his teeth, that tiny sound I fall asleep to most nights. "Because I wanted to tell you in a room where you could walk away and the door would be a new door," he said. "Because I don't want our couch to learn the weight of this sentence." "Tell it," I said. "I kissed him," Adrian said, and the red room tilted just enough that the mirrors looked drunk. "Twice. Once because I missed being a surprise to someone. Once because I wanted to hurt the version of us that keeps winning at logistics. Both times I thought of you. Both times I kept going." The hateful integrity of honest sentences is how they make witty ones die in your throat. Luca looked at Adrian with the kind of pride you only get to wear when you think the truth is a prize. He turned to me and did something obscene in its decency. He nodded. "He told me he loved you," he said. "I told him if he meant it, he had to say it where you could break him. I refused to be anyone safe. I wanted to be righteous. I wanted to be cruel. What I was, frustratingly, was aroused by the spectacle of my husband's mouth in a room that knew how to make a waistline into an argument. The red room is built to celebrate the half-inch between strangers that turns a life. Luca took one slow step, not toward me or away, but along the line that divides good ideas from entertaining ones. He reached up and adjusted my mask, 2 fingers on my temple, a mercy disguised as trespass. His hand smelled like cedar and sugar. He brushed my lower lip with the pad of his thumb, and I inhaled like a man who had forgotten that breath is a voluntary thing. Adrian watched that touch land across my body and his own. He closed the gap, put his palm on my back where it belongs, the square of bone that knows his hand better than my temper knows my mouth. We kept it clean enough for cameras and dirty enough that the mirror behind Luca learned our names. The hand was the map, the heat the legend. If erotics is a language, we kept the verbs implied and the nouns honest, and still the room took notes. "I came here to end something," I said into the tired part of Adrian's shirt, and my voice surprised me by sounding like a man who means what he says. I didn't know which. My husband's breath stuttered against my throat, the way a metronome does when you turn it off and it pretends it can keep time anyway. "Do you want me to leave?" Luca asked. He said it without resentment. He asked it like a decent bartender asks if you want water with your last drink. "Yes," I said, "because the only sin worse than indecision is pretending you don't love it." "Thank you," I added, "because my mother raised me to put manners on the places where my hunger shows." Luca tipped 2 fingers to the edge of his mask and bowed with the exact gravity of a man who intends to get what he wants somewhere else. As he moved past us, his shoulder brushed mine and my body did the kind of inventory it knows how to do too well. Temperature, proximity, permission denied and fantasized. He touched Adrian's knuckles with his and left without looking back. The door side shut like velvet out of practice. I pushed my husband against the red wall with the tenderness that gets mistaken for violence, and the violence that sometimes saves a heart from going strictly procedural. He kissed me like he had rehearsed for this and forgotten his lines on purpose. My hands reacquainted themselves with cartography. His mouth confessed without making a speech. We did not undress in a way that would get a camera confiscated. We did, however, make athletic work of the distance between almost and mine. After, we stood under the chandelier pretending neither of us would look up and see if we glowed. Adrian rested his forehead against mine and muttered profanities in a rhythm that could have been prayer if you squinted. "I don't want to be good," he said. "I want to be chosen, and I want to deserve it." "Then come home," I said. "Choose the version of us that bothers to invent new adjectives." We left the penthouse to whatever happened when we stopped needing it. In the elevator, we didn't pretend not to hold hands. On the sidewalk, a woman in a feathered mask blew us a kiss like she'd been paid to narrate our movie. At home, the couch looked harmless. I put the invitation in a drawer labeled miscellaneous, which is another word for maybe, and taped a square of blue painter's tape to the kitchen window. I wrote 807 with a dull pencil, and we stood there the next night like people who'd been told the minute could be trained. The city performed its affidavit, scooter asking permission, elevator deciding, someone laughing like they survived, and we didn't talk during any of it. We kissed afterward the way men do when their mouths got scared in public and need reminding they're loved. The days that followed were not tidy. Twice Adrian was late and my imagination did cardio until it got lactic. Once I saw Luca on a bus bench, his mask dangling from his pocket like an afterthought. He lifted 2 fingers in a greeting as noncommittal as a truce. I nodded with the serene pettiness of a man who knows where the door is now. At 3:15 on a Thursday, my phone delivered a push alert neither of us admitted to setting. Listen to 11 seconds of water. Text present/where. I played the recording from the laundromat I'd made when I mistook volume for identity. Present/bus stop, I wrote. Present/studio, he sent back, and I didn't need to ask which part of the structure he was repairing. Once a month my neighbor Mr. Chang texts, window, and we answer with 1 sentence each, present/sink, present/couch. He never comments. He puts a muffin by our door and we try not to deserve it. People ask quietly, the way you ask where the bathroom is after you've already walked past it, if there was a villain. I could say it was a man with a red square and a mouth that did the math. I could say it was a room designed to make liabilities look like features. The truth is that the only villain that mattered was the version of us that let romance become a lighting cue. We fired that technician. We hired practice. Tonight at 7:19 I'll make a reservation under yes at a place that doesn't need velvet to be confident. I will wear something Adrian can loosen with 3 fingers in the doorway. If I see Luca, I will be polite because intrigue taught me something useful and I believe in recycling. If we miss our minute, we'll do the only miracle that tolerates repetition. Try again. 8, 17, 10, 10, 11, 11. Whenever Mercy remembers we're still here. The mask with my husband's mouth is in a box with receipts and a ribbon that might become a joke later. The door at home is better. It opens when we knock twice and ask for the truth.